Hi everybody, and welcome to just about mid-semester of Summer 1. Hope you're enjoying the human sexuality class. So I want to go over two of the assignments coming up and just make sure everybody's on the same page before the quiz goes live today. So what we have going on right now is you're in the middle of a forum. This is forum number 2. The quiz will go live today, which is Friday, June 7th. I'll be turning it on around noon, and it'll stay live until Monday at 11:59. It is timed 20 minutes for 11 questions, all multiple choice. They should be pretty straightforward from the readings and the study guide I provided. And then I put 1 or 2 scenario type questions related to a person dealing with an issue of human sexuality and asking what you would do in this case scenario. So that's what's going on right now. Next week will be the week of June 10th, and that is when you have a policy assignment coming due. So there's a little blurb in your syllabus, but today I'll be turning on the materials for next week, and that will give you more information on the policy assignment. It's in 2 parts. Please make sure you do both parts. The first is that you have to find legislation that has been enacted in the last 5 years. Either state legislation or federal legislation. Doesn't have to be your state, can be any state in here. Could also be international legislation. I have had some students do that. If that's of interest to you, please just kind of reach out to me and touch base so we can talk about it. So there are 5 questions that you're going to have to answer related to the legislation that you find. And it's basically, what are the main points of that legislation? Please make sure you provide the Senate or House bill, if it's a state or federal legislation, the name of the legislation, who sponsored it, when was it passed, as part of that overview of the legislation. Then it's going to ask you to talk about biases in the policy, biases in terms of who introduced it, bias in terms of who supported it, what their intended, outcome was. Then that kind of takes you into the third question, which was what has been the impact, either intended or unintended, since this bill has been passed, since this legislation. Then what is the relevance for counseling or social work practice? And then what's your takeaway from this? What did you take away from looking up legislation? I'm not sure how many of you have done that. Knowing, who sponsored things, how they were put through, was it an amendment to a larger bill, and then what does it mean, on the ground? What is it going to mean to you, going forward, and how are you going to be involved in possibly some advocacy efforts related to this legislation or other legislation similar to it? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I provide you a number of sites that you can look up enacted policies. Please make sure that it has been enacted, means signed into law by either a governor, the president, whoever would be the governing body for this legislation. That leads us into the second part of the assignment, which is to identify pending legislation, something that has been introduced. It could have been introduced last year, but it's still pending because it never got enacted. And then what that means is it's looking at whether it's going to be continued into the current administration or Congress, where is it stalled, what's happening with it. So that's a shorter section of the paper, but really gets you looking into what's happening now in terms of legislation. If you need any clarification on this assignment at all, please let me know. I'm available. Shoot me a text, and we can either communicate by text if that works best, or have a brief conversation. The next part that's coming up is the evidence-based practice assignment. I will also be turning on some things for the week of the 17th related to the evidence-based practice assignment. This is going to be a fact sheet where you identify an evidence-based practice and you basically create a handout related to that evidence-based practice. And then the second part of this assignment is where you're going to be matched up with a partner to have a phone call and answer some questions about your practice in the real world. It's very straightforward. It's just about finding an evidence-based practice, touching base with me about the practice that you identify, listing it in the section that I put on Moodle, where you, similar to your book, your memoir, there'll be a section for you to list your evidence-based practice, and then creating the handout. If you've never done kind of a handout, pamphlet, flyer type thing, I'm happy to help you identify some templates you can use, or I provide some examples and I can provide you one in Word that you could use as your template. So please, again, just reach out to me through that process. It's important that I know what you're doing, which evidence-based practice, because I don't, again, want people to pick the same evidence-based practices. Okay, so those are really the two major assignments coming up. We'll have a couple more chats on readings and such, and then a book chat at the end. So if you have questions as we go through this, certainly reach out. I'm happy to talk to you. Also, one of the things that, and I think I may have said this in the intro video, is so important to me is sharing resources. I try in the chats to share some of my lived experience, but it's important that I have the opportunity, even though this is an online class, to provide you with resources and materials that, you may be able to utilize. And if you just heard a doorbell ding, that's because over the summer I'm working part-time in a mattress store that my friends own. So I'm up here at Resnick's Mattress Warehouse, and that's one of our staff that just walked by. So if you need any mattresses, I can hook you up. Also for the summer, I think some of you may have heard in the last chat, I've been a foster parent and I'm an adoptive parent. And one of my kids is graduating high school next week. He's 20, and it's been a long journey for him through foster care and permanency with me as a subsidized permanent legal custodian, and then his journey through high school. So my summer's starting off well, and I look forward to working with all of you in this class and beyond. All right, have a great day.